Imperial Japan launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor without declaring war on the United States, damaging or sinking 12 US Navy warships. In addition to the damage to American warships, 2,334 American soldiers and 103 civilians were also killed. Among the misfortunes, 3 aircraft carriers of the Pacific Fleet, which were fortunately not in port, were unharmed. And it was a really fortunate matter that Pearl Harbor's oil depots and armory were not damaged. Fortunately, the United States was able to quickly repair the damage and start a war with Japan between 6 months and a year. The United States finally began to take an offensive position against Japan, which was in a very disadvantaged position due to the loss of its main aircraft carriers. In August 1942, the United States attacked Guadalcanal, a key point south of the Solomon Islands, and recaptured it in January of the following year. Until this time, the US and Japanese Army, naval, and air forces in the Pacific had been nearly balanced. However, a year later, Japan's combat capabilities had fallen sharply to 1/3 the size of the United States. In attrition warfare across the Pacific, Japan lost a large number of warships and aircraft and was incomparably behind the United States in production capacity. The lack of shipping capacity made it difficult for Japan to support the garrison on the outskirts of the occupied area, and the crisis was aggravated by the gradual depletion of stockpiles in Japan. The biggest reason Japan lost to the United States was that it was far behind in national power. A Japanese military expert said before the war, Japan calculated the power of the United States to be 20 times that of Japan. However, when the war ended, the actual difference in national power exceeded 100 times. At that time, Japan used oil from the United States, and various technology patents for airplanes were also owned by the United States.
In 1941, Japan relied on imports for 92% of its oil. Among them, imports from the United States accounted for 81%.
In particular, 100% of high-octane gasoline for aircraft was imported from the United States. Japan also relied entirely on the United States for advanced lubricants for aircraft.
Because of this, it was impossible to import high-quality lubricants for aircraft from the United States. So during World War II, Japan had no choice but to use low-octane gasoline and low-grade lubricants.
The engines of Japanese military aircraft, Hikari and Kotobuki, are clones or licensed products of Light and P&W of the United States, respectively.
the various pitch propeller of the Zero-Sen, the main fighter of the Japanese Navy, is a copy of Hamilton's product. This situation occurred because it was difficult to design an original product with the Japanese technology. There was a big difference with the US in terms of technology. In its judgment of the situation right before the start of the war, Japan evaluated that the likelihood of the US military's national mobilization is relatively low, given that the overall mental power of Americans is low and the individualist tendencies are considerable. However, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Americans were united and their will for war overflowed. Japan had high confidence without any basis and lacked information about the United States. As a result, the Japanese became overly obsessed with mental strengths, introducing jade and kamikaze strategies. Jade strategies mean that troops on the verge of defeat do not retreat, but risk their lives to defend themselves. It was said that retreating was shameful as a soldier of the Japanese Empire, and dying while defending it was an honorable death. Kamikaze is a strategy in which a person pilots a self-destruct fighter or battle boat in a suicidal attack and collides with an enemy target. Numerous young lives were lost in these terrible operations. If they had surrendered in advance, realizing they could not win the war, they could have prevented the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
From the point of view of the present era, it is clear how reckless and foolish the mental state that dominated the leadership of the Japanese Empire at that time was.
It shows the inhumanity and immorality of the Japanese leadership at the time that the lives of millions of people were not at all important for the emperor of the Japanese Empire. My guess is that the Japanese military leadership at the time was fatally brainwashed.
Morale was high without reason. The Japanese believed themselves to be of superior ethnicity, and I think it was because they were possessed by an evil spirit, viewing Japan's national power as unfoundedly high, and weakly viewing the United States as weak.
Had Japan's leadership surrendered earlier, the atomic bombing could have prevented the deaths of countless innocent civilians. Considering the countless innocent civilian victims in Japan, it's pretty sad and terrible.
We hope there will be no more disastrous wars in the future, so that countless innocent lives will not come out anymore.
Thank you for watching the video, Expansion of the Japanese Empire in the Pacific Part 2, provided by History and Current Events. I'm Rebecca, Mia, Katie, Leah, and Tony have contributed so far as narrators. Thank you.